Hey, everybody. I want you to guess what 5 shots of espresso that I have in my hand and B2B marketing content have in common. Well, they have it that we're going to record this podcast today of Email Never Sleeps. And I'm really excited to introduce you to Kate Arney-Cimino, all the way from Los Angeles, California. I would love for you to give your background to everybody here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll just jump into the topic.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me. And I'm very excited to be here. I'm
Yeah.
a content marketer who specializes in email campaigns, so writing email content. And I am a different type of marketer in the way that I have a very strong sales background. So I have a long background in insurance sales, property and casualty and life insurance, and then in ed tech sales. And I think, as we know, with salespeople, they kind of are their own email marketers because they have to do so much emailing, and they learn like what works and what doesn't with the prospect. So bringing that to the marketing team of my ed tech company a few years ago ended up being pretty successful with the email campaigns. And they gave me a lot of trust, and which was very nice to just trust that this is what's worked and it will continue working.
So what are, I mean, yeah, you're right. You have a unique background. Being in sales and then sort of jumping into content marketing really is an interesting leap, right? And what would you say was the hardest part of jumping from sales to creating content for emails? What was that hardest thing, and what are some of the secret sauce maybe that you have?
Okay, well, I think at the current company, it wasn't that hard because I really knew the customer. I really understood the customer. I'd been on the phone with them. I'd seen them in demos. I'd been rejected by them, all the things. I was very familiar with exactly who we were talking to. And I think that's what made it very successful, was knowing the tech director for the 5 to 10 school district in like West Virginia versus
Right.
like director of IT for a private school who maybe isn't wearing flannel and he wears a suit, like knowing the differences of all of our different customer prospects. And so I think a challenge is for other clients really having to research the background of who we're reaching out to. And I know this isn't like always an easy thing to do. If you have a list that's like, 5,000 people, you probably can't like look them all up on LinkedIn. But if you could grab like a handful of them, just to get an idea of who you're talking to, because at least with schools, a lot of times they're not just like the tech director or the superintendent. They're also like bagging lunches for the weekend to go home with kids at the end of the day. They're doing a lot of things and not just their one title. So really, I would say the most important thing is understanding who you're talking to and knowing their tone and everything.
Yeah, I was going to mention that tone, right? And so we all know, believe it or not, we are America, but the tone in West Virginia versus the tone in Southern California versus the tone in Wyoming may be a little bit different, right? Do you adapt some of the things that you write, or do you try to just think of the general issues that people have and try to write content towards that?
I think sometimes adapting the tone, if you're working for like a very progressive tech company, which is a great thing, but they have like a language they want you to say. So they want you to maybe say, instead of we saying parents, we say families, but like and different things like that. So maybe the guy in West Virginia isn't going to respond to families. He wants to hear parents versus LAUSD, they they have their own language that they're working on. And so knowing that, but in general, hitting the pain of that prospect. And they all have at schools, and you wouldn't know this just being on the marketing team, because you really have to hear those demos where like kids are coming into the office mid demo, like with issues, and they're having to like stop the demo to like go help the kids. And so maybe then you write an email about if you get one more interruption, or whatever, then they see you and they will read more.
And that's what we talked about when in our through our communications, and even when we chatted before we started recording this, was telling a story, right? Is you formulate these stories from really understanding the client, and so you can write content. Tell me a little bit about telling this story. How do you adapt? One of the things is I wrote down there's a script, right? Like an email script and stuff that you write. Tell me about how you tell a story.
So like I try to tell a story with an email campaign. So maybe it's like 5 to 7 emails. And the first email is going to be just their major pain point. So we're not trying to push the product. We're trying to just get the connection. I mean, obviously we're trying to sell the product, but like first
Right.
email, we just need them to open it and we need them to be like, oh yeah, like I totally feel that. And then the second email will be like a more specific part of that pain. That's like something that's directly happening. So maybe it's like ADA accessibility with websites in their state or whatever it is. And then I always do like a reply just to be like, are we still here? Are we still, should we keep going? And then I like to then bring in, well, these people are doing this in your area and that's helped them. So then they have like, okay, well, I know that guy at that school, so that's working. Okay. And then in terms of the sales story, I think it's so important to be, and you were just talking about this in one of your recent podcasts about just being a human and being like, yes, this is a sales email. So, and I do a script where it'll be like, so we're going to call you and you're going to say this, and we're going to say this, and you're going to say this. Right. And who doesn't want to read, a little script, but also it changes up the format. So you're not just seeing like a block of text, bullet points, and then a signature line and the link or whatever it is. So it visually makes it a little more interesting as well. And then obviously we want to give them something free that's useful, not just an ebook, but like if there's, a checklist or 7 things that are coming in the admissions technology in 2024, whatever it is, something that will be really specific to them. And then we break up if it hasn't worked out.
And this is where, and I 100% agree with you, but if you're listening and you're a B2B marketer, I think one of the things that we tend to do, because I've been there, I've been a B2B marketer in my career, is we want to barf product, right? We want to just talk about the product, talk about the webcast, talk about a ebook, talk about stuff, boom, 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 boom. And we want to get right to the point. And probably part of that has to do from the marketing side. I'm a marketer, right? Is that we feel as if we need to sell in that email. And I think that is a recipe sometimes for disaster. And this is where I'd go back and say, maybe you should test something that's clinical, right? Product, I call it a product barf email, right? A product barf email versus something that's the story that they can relate to. And that again is part of knowing your customer. But all too often, I get a ton of B2B emails every single day. And I look at them and I say to myself, all they're trying to do is tell me what to do next and not relating to my situation and understanding some of the challenges and things that I have, which is why I would appreciate a story much better than I would of how do you solve everybody else's problems? Right. We have to take the old school methodology of product barfing, then the newer ish school of solving challenges, but turning that into more of a human speak and then relating that to a story. That's the leap that everyone needs to make. And it's hard, right? I mean, do you agree it's hard or
it is hard because you have to, I mean, the first couple emails are just building the pain. And then, and at the end, are you like, and we can solve all those problems? No, just like, you know, if you want to learn more, just very gentle, but also, you know, it's like dating. So you
Yeah.
want to just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you know, you want to start slow and get to know the person, and then you're like, oh, you like chocolate ice cream, I like chocolate ice cream, and then like go from there. And then they also like the same kind of movies in the next email. Perfect, you know. So
Yeah, good analogy, right? If you're on a first date, the last thing you want to do is ask him to marry you on the first date, right? And to commit to something, right? Because it's hard, right? I mean, people don't want to do that. I want to jump into a different topic here in a minute that I think everyone's talking about today, but I want to get your opinion on short versus long form copy inside of an email. Do you
yeah,
have preferences? Have you tested it before in the past? Because I know people
yeah.
struggle with, we want to write more because we want to tell everybody how great we are, right? So tell me what your thoughts are on short
I mean,
versus.
not to make this a whole dating analogy, but like you don't
Good.
want to tell the guy your whole life story on the first date.
Right.
So, because then like, what are you going to talk about the second date? So I am a huge fan of the shorter the email, the better. If you could do the email in 4 words, like, which
Right.
you can't, that would be
Right.
amazing. But I think anything over 125 words is like,
Mhm.
and I will say my breakup email is longer because it's my last like hurrah to like get you, you know, I'm begging. But I think no one's reading an email, no one's reading complete sentences. And I think that's another thing with when reaching out to schools, they are sometimes very academic. So if you're reaching out to a private school, yes, you have to like follow and be like more formal with complete sentences. But
Mhm.
public schools, they are skimming. And so making like bolding certain words, making bullet points, putting extra spaces. And so maybe it is only 75 words, but it still looks long, but it's like, so
Mhm.
shorter the better. I mean, I'm not reading, who's reading an ebook? Nobody, but who's reading a long email even from like the Gap? Like we're
Right.
not. We're
Or
clicking
not.
on a photo.
We're not. And I think one of the things that I've seen, the evolution of some B2B companies, right? That they've evolved their sort of emails into making them, like you said, highlighted, but I love the use of color, right? Where they're highlighting a use of color and telling, and it draws my eyes when I skim to read if it's like, good day, Andrew, blah, 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 blah. And then, but they highlight through color or different fonts. It gets me to want to maybe read it a little bit more. And the same thing with ebooks, right? Like I've noticed this evolution over the last 10 years. These ebooks are getting more and more creative, for especially if we're talking about content. But then again, that goes back to knowing your audience, right? Remember you mentioned like it's hard enough to get through a demo with people coming in and bothering them. Imagine if you wrote a 400-word email and I just have to sit there and scroll, whether I'm on my phone or whether I'm on my 434-inch screen, right? I don't know how many people in the school districts have 34-inch screens, but you know what I mean, right? I mean, it's a digital ADD syndrome that we all have. Okay, I want to switch topics here for a second because I think it's really interesting. We're hearing a lot about AI, right? And I've played around with quite a few tools in AI. I use Grammarly when I write. I've got terrible grammar. But I also check it through GPT and some of the other writing apps, now Gemini. And everyone's thinking that this thing is going to take over, jobs or replace parts of jobs or, yada, yada, yada. And as a content creator, as a copy person, as somebody that has to think about this stuff, are you threatened by it at all?
I mean, I was at first, but I have used it for, I think it's very helpful. It's another tool. So it's very helpful when you're creating a blog and you need like 10 things and you've got 7, and then you ask AI and you're like, oh yeah, I didn't think of that one. That one's a good one. So that's very helpful. But I don't know if you've asked AI to write you like a B2B email. It's it's horrible. So it will the subject line gives the whole email away. So that's like not going to work. Because if you're not interested, if you're not buying a product today, you're going
Mhm.
to delete the email and not even open it. And then it doesn't under AI doesn't know the pain, and it doesn't know that like initial connection. Maybe AI could write like a nurture sequence or something like that, maybe, but they still has to know the tone. And I think there's a way people talk that's very unique, and people want to feel like they're getting, especially with B2B, that it's actually coming, that email is coming from the salesperson and not like, you know, a content marketer or someone like
Right.
that. And so they want to feel that unique language of how we phrase things. And are you familiar with Garrison Keillor?
Oh,
He's like,
sure. Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
So I love him, and he's such
Yeah.
a great storyteller, but he has an expression in one of his stories that AI could, like, only a human could come up with this. And he's in the story, the dog, it's like a fishing dog, and it catches a fish and brings the fish to its human family and is
Yeah.
very proud. And he says, that dog was so excited, it was on the verge of speech. And it's such a like a beautiful way. And like a human reading that would be like, of course, I get it. I love it. I'm in the story now.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, now my phone is probably listening to this conversation, so maybe they'll fix this. But like
Yeah.
AI
Yeah.
can never come up with something
Yeah.
so poignant and direct and relatable. And it just can't, even when talking, AI hasn't talked to all the tech directors or superintendents. It
Right.
just hasn't. So, but in terms of getting ideas, I think it's very helpful. But
I get
other,
a, like I said, I get a lot of emails, and 100% agree with you. I get a lot of emails, and every once in a while I try to sniff out if it was written by AI, because they're not speaking, the words are conveying something, but I'm like, this doesn't, I can't put 2 cents, I can't make that sense out of it, right? And I often try to guess, is it AI or not? I know there's tools, but I don't know if they're built into email or something where you can just press a button and it senses,
I
it
don't.
goes to AI. I think that'd be kind of cool though,
That
right?
would be. You know, there's the guy at the meeting sometimes who speaks, who uses a lot of good words,
Yeah.
but when he's done talking, you're like, I have no idea what he said. Like,
Right.
it sounded good, it looked good,
Yeah.
but I don't remember anything from it. I think that's like kind of what AI does, because it can't connect yet.
Yeah. And look, I don't want to bash it. I like it. I think it's cool. I think it's fun. I think it has a lot of merits for many different things. But I also think there's a time and place for it. I've used AI to write some of my stuff, maybe even some of my emails, but it's my original thought, and I just have them give me a couple different versions of it. But I also like to mess around with my adult son and write him like scathing emails using AI. That's always sort of fun, because then he comes back and he's like, "Dad, come on, seriously, dude, like whatever." But it's kind of fun to play. It's kind of fun to play around with, and we have to remember that these models are older, right? I mean, they're GPT 3.5 or GPT 4 is with the latest one, and it's older. It's rewriting some of the stuff with older, and I use that in air quotes, content. So Kate, I'd love to wrap it up. And I'd love for you to give our audience maybe one or two key takeaways. If they had to take away something today and either make it actionable or start to working on it to be actionable, what would you give? What advice?
Um, I think we just froze. Are you?
Oh,
I
I'm
lost
good.
that. Okay, we're
Yeah.
good. Okay,
Are you
so
there?
sorry. So, one or two
No.
actionable things.
One or two takeaways. Yeah.
So I would say, if you can, if listen to a demo or a couple demos, or even listen in on a sales call, hear what the rejections are, hear what's not working, and hear their tone, hear if they're
Mhm.
casual, if they're not casual. If you can, if you're working with a smaller list and you have the luxury of like LinkedIning a couple people just to see what they look like and sort of really get an idea for the feel and their pain,
Mhm.
I would do that. And another thing I would do, and we didn't really talk about this, is we're like pushing a product. You're hearing from the people above you to push the product, sell, sell, sell. But try and think of like a creative way that maybe is skirting around the product. So um, like with schools, for example, well, actually, I'm going to use, my husband works for a life insurance company,
Okay.
and they have a blog, and their most visited blog page, it's actually the top 5 hits, is a blog on, is soda bad for you? Which has nothing to do with life insurance, but it
Right.
kind of does, because it's about health. And then you're there and you could like sign up if you wanted to. So something that's kind of more like on the outskirts of the issue. So I think with like schools, a major thing that no one's talking about is divorced parents, and all that information going back and forth between 2 households. Like, who gets the permission slip? If you get the permission slip, but then did you get the information to bring the bag lunch, and now the kids at the dad's house, or something like that? How does that work? But we have all this ed tech to solve these problems. We're not talking about like issues right then, like something like that. So more trying to come up with a more creative way, an entertaining way, because who doesn't want to like click on a post about divorce or something? I know that's terrible, but people do. And
Go ahead.
so being like a little more entertaining with the topic, instead of trying to push the actual product.
And if for some reason you get continued pressure for pushing product, this is an excellent opportunity to do testing, right? And not just one and done testing and like, okay, this one lost, this one won, we move on, right? Sometimes it takes a while to let this stuff marinate, right? So definitely push for the testing of tone or content or storylines or whatever. All great points. Listen to demos, listen to uh, people calling in to the helpline. Also look at your search, work with your search specialists, right? What are people coming in for? What are people landing on and what pages? What were the terms coming in, so that you can also help formulate a story? I'd also say that my one big key takeaway with is, we hear the whole content is king, and I've heard this for 25 years, right? And it's really old, and we should really stop that. But more importantly, today, and at least one thing I know that COVID has taught us, and has taught me, is the humanization of marketing. But more importantly, people want to make this connection, right? I don't care if you sell B2B software, B2B subscriptions, B2B whatever, right? People want to know your brand on a different level, not just bleh, right? Like, this is what we have to offer you. And I think making that humanized connection, right? Through storytelling, like we talked about, but more importantly, through the tone and the content and the words and the solving of pains, rather than just coming at them and saying, help, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. It gets old, right? It really does. And I think the companies that make that leap, or at least test out that leap, are going to be successful. Cool. So like we do with everybody on our shows here, Kate, we're going to link where to get a hold of you, right? You're freelance now. You do some marketing, freelance marketing, you write content. I'm sure that people would love to hear from you, maybe talk to you a little bit about it. So we're going to give all the deets of where to get a hold of Kate online, especially on LinkedIn. I wanted to thank you. We had a call earlier about this. I think you've given some amazing advice and pointed people in the right direction. Now let's have them do it. Any parting words?
Well, just thank you so much for having me. And this has been amazing. And also, yes, like I think being a human to the prospect, and even if it means your voice is shaking or your email even isn't perfect,
Right.
that means you're a human, and people like people more than computers.
I think I heard a statement one time: don't focus on you, focus on them. It's really hard. It's easy for us to go, we're the best, here's the thing, whiz bang, type of stuff. It's more important to focus on them as an individual, whether they represent a school district or a large scale organization wanting to buy software, right? I think that's really important. So again, everybody, thank you so much for your attention, your continued support of Email Never Sleeps. Thanks again to my guest, Kate. And as always, I'll tell you guys this. Go out and keep doing what you're doing, but try to do something a little bit iterative to make a change in your program. There's always room for optimization opportunities. Thanks again, everybody. I appreciate your time again, Kate.
Thank you. Bye.